Good stuff. Oh, and thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're very, very welcome. So, hello and welcome to the Dead Man Walking podcast. I'm your host, Repeatedly Dead Fred, author of the medical trauma memoir, The Summer I Died 20 Times, which is actually what happened to me. And
Unreal.
That's how I got the nickname Repeatedly Dead Fred. And today I am here with the very well-known film critic, Anne Brodie, who is taking time out of her very, very busy schedule of watching movies to chat with us and talk about her amazing career.
First of all, thank you for inviting me, but please just give me a thumbnail of dying 20 times.
Wasn't fun. Really wasn't. It was just a matter that I had a heart condition that could have been diagnosed pretty readily. But it seems like I just met a series of doctors who were convinced I was having heart attacks and I wasn't. So.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. So.
Oh, my word.
My usual disclaimer, I'm not blaming the medical system. It's just a series of unfortunate things that happened to me over a 4-month period. And, but I got a book and a podcast out of it. So
yay. Yay. It's a very intriguing title for this podcast too.
Thank you. It was 50-50, on the title of my book and the podcast title. So people either loved it or hated it. So
yeah,
I thought it must be good. If it's getting strong reactions, it must be a good.
Yes, precisely. That's what they really think. And they're going to tell people whether they like it or not. So word spreads.
Yes. So I have to tell whoever's tuning in that you are currently freezing in your abode. So you're crossed up like this, not because you're not happy to be here, but because you're literally freezing. And I think you should turn on your heater, even though it's a little
okay.
noisy.
Thank you. Done. Let's move. All right.
Okay. So how about your superhero origin story? How did Anne Brodie become Anne Brodie?
You know what? I have not told this to anyone before, but it suddenly occurred to me this morning. It all started at home when I was very small, 6 or 7, and my bedroom was over top of the living room where the TV was. And I was always sent to bed, and I was, of course, fascinated by TV. And so, but I had this air vent. So I got a mirror and I would watch TV for as long as the family did. That's what got me started.
That's hilarious.
Fascination with storytelling, visible storytelling. And I think that's it. That's the impulse we all have. When you think back, stories are what bring people together. When you think of primitive people, even, stories passed down generations, indigenous life and stories passed down millennia. Everybody has them, and that's what we like to look to stories, not just for entertainment and amusement, but for learning and for direction sometimes, and to learn about human beings. So, storytelling is it, and film is just the way we have. That means we don't have to read a long book. And I think that's partly laziness, but it works. It works.
I was just reading an article on the Voyager spacecrafts, if you remember those. That were launched in I think the late 70s, and they're still going. Like they're 1.5 billion miles out or whatever it is. And the part of the story, well, lots of parts are fascinating to me, is that Carl Sagan got them to write some sort of gold-plated disc that has like part of the history of Earth with these symbols that they thought any alien life would be able to interpret.
Kidding? I didn't know that. That's amazing.
I mean, he was smart and he did a lot of drugs and he thought outside the box.
I'll say. And what about that dog who was sent up? The Russians sent a dog up into space.
Yeah.
I guess he died, but it seems so
Yeah.
tragic.
Yeah.
But why
Way to
would they
bring the
do that?
podcast up.
Yes. Well, so you're a film producer and you do a lot of film work as well?
No, I'm just a podcaster.
Just a podcaster.
Yeah, I wrote my book and the podcast is a spin-off of the book because I figured so many people helped me get my book published and helped me through all my medical traumas that it's only fair that I help other people celebrate their wins and get their stories out there. So that's how it started. And I got invited on a podcast by Jen Stevens about intermittent fasting. She's the queen of intermittent fasting. And I got hooked and I said, well, I could do a podcast.
Yeah.
That's
this
how
is
it
for
happened.
me. Yes. Good stuff. That's great. I mean, podcasts are the thing, and everyone wants to do one and have one. I don't know if I could do that. I think I'm sort of moving into a different phase of my life where I don't really want to work as hard as I have done for so many years.
Sure.
But hats off to you. It's an accomplishment and very au courant. So attaboy.
So you did your, sort of James Bondy spy thing with the mirror over the vent. Is that what you're really doing? Is you're under the guise of a film critic, but you're spying on people?
I'm watching from wherever I can. Yes, I guess I am. I guess I'm a voyeur. But that was I was supposed to be in bed hours earlier and asleep and everything. And my mother had come up and of course I could see her going around the corner to the staircase. So I'd hop into bed and but then and then fortuitously, when I was in late public school, early high school, I had a friend who worked the box office in the Roxy Theater. It was only one theater in town. And of course, she let me go into everything. So I was going off when the family was sleeping or having a quiet night. I was sneaking out and going to see things like Synanon. And the movies changed once a week. So there were 2 films seen per week. So I just about saw everything back then. And it was pretty cool. And my mother might have known. She might have known. She was all over me going into a career of watching things. She knew how much I loved it. Yeah. So, and of course, the beauty of it is movies are endlessly imaginative, and they're also relentless. So I can say that I have spent too many hours watching movies. But that's life,
Yeah. So can you enjoy a bad film?
Yeah, I enjoy writing about it. Yes, indeed. Oh, yes. And I love to get onto the phone to my sister and say, oh, my goodness, that film I watched tonight was just brutal. And she said, oh, good. Yeah, I'm going to have fun writing it. Yeah, those are the greatest challenges because I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to offend the exhibitors, the distributors, the actors, the filmmakers, because they had a dream, and that's their dream. But so I like to find a way that I can sort of shimmy into it without offending. And that's, I probably, some of my fellow critics are freer. And I wish I could be, but I can't. So, there you go.
So I asked, I told you I was just talking to
Tom
Ernst, and I asked him, I ask a lot of people in different industries, who's on their Mount Rushmore of
Of
Yeah. I
interviews?
asked, no, of films he watched. Who's your top four? So, but I'm going to change it for you.
Mm-hmm.
What are your top four worst movies? And maybe that makes your filter explode. So if it does, we can move on.
Yes. I don't really want to say in public
Okay.
to
Okay.
your millions of viewers, because it might get back to the studios.
Mm-hmm.
But I can certainly tell you a couple of my favorite films.
Mm-hmm.
Days of Heaven by Terrence Malick.
Okay.
I'll never forget watching that. Oh, I shouldn't say this. Well, I will. So my friend Rosie and I went to see it at a screening years ago, and we'd smoked a little weed.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, the sound in that film is really good. You can hear every corner of the frame. So the dogs started barking. We're looking all over the place for the dogs.
That's funny.
It was so funny. Yeah, it was. But I do love that film. And I could watch it on repeat, same as Apocalypse Now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a wonderful film called Boyhood from, I don't know when, not that long ago. And it followed a boy literally for his entire babyhood, toddlerhood, and into his growing up. Stunning film. And what commitment. What commitment. I just think of it now and I get chills. Have you seen Boyhood?
No. And again, I'll reference Miles Shane, who connected us. He'll start talking about movies, and he's easily watched 1,500 to 2,000 more movies than I have.
Yeah.
I generally have no idea. So are you saying this is a true life film? Like somebody followed?
No, it's acting. It's a story.
Oh, it's acting. Okay.
But it's there forever. I mean, it catches everything. And unfortunately, I can't remember who the kid was, but I interviewed him, and I saw my friend's interviews with him, and he said the exact same thing. Said he did this. You know, it was really moving, and then he'd pretend to cry. But all my friends interviewed him, and we all got the same clip, which is funny.
That's commitment to the craft.
Commitment to the craft, yes. I can tell you what I don't like in film. I really find it tortuous to sit through, so I tend not to. Is superhero films, horror. No more horror. I used to love horror, but the world is too odd now, as you might agree. And it doesn't sit well. It doesn't do you much good.
Right.
And I like a film to do you some good in some way. And there's plenty of those. So yeah, I'm not crazy about those. And some genre films, of course. But yes, and for what she said, our demographic is women 35 plus. They're not interested in that either, thank goodness. So I'm a lucky duck.
Yeah. Can you explain to people who might not know what she said is?
Yeah, what she said is hosted and owned by Candace Sampson, who is an amazing producer. She gets the most interesting guests on, and it's never fluff. It's always serious issues for women to consider: finances, wellness, health, children. You know, it's big topics, nothing silly. You know, not giveaways of bogus prizes and you know, bleh. It's really smart. And I do the film reviews for her and the interviews. And it's now 10 years altogether for the show. It was launched by Kate Wheeler and Christine Bentley. And I think they were with it for 7 years, and it's been Candace ever since. And I'm telling you, it's just been the job of my life. I adore it. I love working in a sort of a woman-centric kind of a universe. And one that is aimed at someone my age, you know, so it's a delight for me. And the show is really good, really good.
So what was your big break in, or was it a series of little breaks that, you know, led you down a path?
Um, um, I was in the newsroom. I was a news writer, and my boss, my terrifying boss, was talking to me about a Zeppelin exploding for some reason, and I said, "Oh, that was a great movie." And he went, "Uh-huh." A couple weeks later, I was interviewing a fashion designer, and his wife was a publicist, and she told him that she liked my style of interviewing. And that was the beginning of 26 years. So of doing that at CFTO. And I did a lot of traveling. I was very lucky for that. But, you know, traveling every week and working all week long, you can't do that forever. So it's, but I had a great time, and I met all the big celebs of the 90s and 2000s. And yeah, even Daniel Day-Lewis, I can't believe it. Still pinching myself over that. He's the funniest guy. He just loves to laugh. And you wouldn't think so.
Yeah. But it's just a reminder of that you're watching something that's not real, that is so impactful. You know, I mean, he can really change his personality.
No kidding. Honestly, I don't think there's been an actor who surpasses him. And unfortunately, he retired at the top of his career.
Didn't I just read something that he's unretiring for something?
What? Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding you that I think I read that.
You think you read that? Good reply. Good reply. I am astonished and surprised, and I thank you for that. And
my pleasure. I hope it's true.
Yeah. Oh, that's so exciting. I'll research when I get off. I can't type and talk at the same time.
I have that challenge as well.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So how much do you think smoking weed has contributed to your career?
Actually,
that's something you'd recommend?
Yeah, no, not at all. Not at all. Oh, no. And that was the only time. But, you know, films, this is the thing about films, which is good and bad. It affects your emotions and your spirit and everything. You're immersed in them, and they can leave you feeling good or bad. And you know, if it's a film of big emotion, weed might make it a bit tense, or maybe you wouldn't get the impact, whatever your reaction is. But no, I would not recommend it. And that's the first time I've ever been asked that.
Well, I guess because it's the first time you've ever mentioned it. So
yeah. Now I'll have to phone Rosie and tell her. Oh well.
You've been outed, Rosie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I probably have a pretty limited range of genre for what I watch. And I tend to watch things where I know it's going to be a positive outcome, because as you said, there's enough junk. So even if it's, you know, like a James Bond movie, you know, there's going to be some turmoil, but good conquers evil at the end.
Exactly. And that's what I'm drawn to too. It wasn't always like that, but as you get older, you think, what kind of an ideal world do I want? And you kind of have to see it reflected in your entertainment choices. Now, what do you look at for comfort viewing?
Oh, well, right now I'm sort of consumed with watching, you know, whatever YouTube feeds me. And I'm lucky that they haven't pigeonholed me yet.
Oh, so, good. Yes.
Because some people get the algorithm just stuck on whatever. Yeah. And I really didn't watch YouTube until I was in the hospital, bored out of my mind on one of my many luxury vacations there. And I just started seeing there's like just this amazing breadth of content. Um, I didn't know there were things like reaction videos and stuff like that. And there's a woman from Toronto, probably in her early 30s. She started doing video games and reaction videos. And in 2018, 2019, she was like the most viewed person on YouTube.
You're
Like
kidding.
Almost 2 billion views for this first generation Canadian who was planning to go to med school.
Wow.
And she just had this knack for understanding the algorithm and the thumbnails. So movie posters used to be like so key, to getting people drawn to the cinema. And now on YouTube, it's who can crack those thumbnails, who gets the thumbnails that people will pick out of the gallery and click on there.
Interesting.
I'm sure there's more to it than that, but it's a big component.
Yes. I've got caught up recently on reaction videos. Americans listening to the Tragically Hip. They love it. You knew they would, but they're astonished by the lyrics and the soul that Gord Downey sang with. Yes, YouTube is really fun, but I have enforced viewing almost every night.
So,
and go ahead.
I think the last theater movie I saw was the one with I forget her name, Melanie Griffith's daughter.
Oh, Dakota Johnson.
Yeah, when she was like sort of being made into the female Spider-Woman or the guy from the X-Men. She was like one of those versions.
Yes.
And I know it had gotten
that's a while
really bad reviews. Yeah, it's like 6 months ago at least.
Yeah.
It had gotten really bad reviews, but my friend really wanted to go see it. And then watched it. And when my friends asked me how it was, I said it wasn't as awful as I expected it to be.
Yes, exactly. Now I've got a beef about this week's releases here with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, and they're reunited with Robert Zemeckis, and they did Forrest Gump together. And it's about life in one room from millennia ago to a family and their generations. Everybody seems to hate it online and reviews and Rotten Tomatoes. I really enjoyed it. I was bawling my eyes out at the end. Oh well.
But it's sort of the same as with the news cycles now. And I don't like to talk politics, but I'll just say, the US elections. You've got all these news anchors opinionating, speaking as though they're facts, and people don't know what's real and what's not. And it's just not a good system. So basing everything off a critic or a pundit is probably not a good way to go through life. No. Unless it's your articles, and then you can be safe as well.
Yeah, right. Yes. Yeah, it's funny. Sometimes something appeals to you, and I guess it's just so personal, or so your ancient memory or whatever that it works for you, and it doesn't work for anyone else. That's fine. C'est la vie. C'est la vie. Yeah, my comfort viewing, believe it or not, is British Murder series. Oh, they're so good. Vera, Shetland, Ripley, they really know how to do these things. So if you haven't seen them, and they're generally on PBS and Vision channels like that, and you can also get them on YouTube, try them out. They're really good, and they're really brainy. They're a lot better than the Americans or even the Norwegian ones, which are pretty good. Yeah, really rock solid.
We're also missing a lot of the great comedies that we used to get. Like,
yeah. Yes. I've tried to watch some sort of mainstream sitcoms, and they don't work for me. And do you remember when the streets used to close down when Cosby would come on?
A little bit, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that was because he was so funny or they were so afraid of him.
He just had a great relationship with with his family, and I haven't seen anything like that since. Mind you, he's been in trouble. Let's ignore that for just for these comments, or anything before that. So he really did something unique. But I remember, and I think maybe it was the finale or something. There was no street traffic anywhere. Everyone was home watching it.
That's interesting. I suspect when MASH went off the air or All in the Family, it was probably similar.
Yeah, yeah, perhaps so. Yes. Yeah, those were good shows.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
those
actually
kinds of shows aren't around, are they?
no, I actually helped cater a Bill Cosby concert or performance in Winnipeg. That's where I'm from. And my cousin owned a deli, and his cousin was the promoter. And we got the spec sheet for all the food and beverage that had to be for Cosby. And
Uh-oh.
yeah, we had to source. I guess they're 6-ounce bottles, like the old glass Coke bottles. Like, 9
How
dozen
did
of
you
them.
find them? What? Really?
Yeah, yeah. Like, and artists, I think, do all sorts of these boundary pushing things in their
Yeah.
spec sheets. And there's the story that Van Halen wanted, all these M&Ms, but there couldn't be any brown ones.
Yeah, I remember hearing that.
And they did
Isn't
that
that
as a
wild?
joke to see how far they could push it.
Yeah,
And
and they all got away with it because they were all money makers.
yeah, and I had to pick out all the brown ones. So now is the time I reveal that I'm very colorblind. So I have no idea what I was picking out, and I don't think they cared.
That is hysterical. I hope they hear this. Oh God, that's so funny. Oh man, oh man. Well, I remember being in New York to interview on a junket Madonna, and we were told when she comes through the hallway, you have to turn and face the wall. That was the most horrifying one that I remember.
And did people actually do that?
Yeah.
Wow.
We all did that. Yeah.
Like the epitome of arrogance.
Meanness. Just incredible. Just incredible. I think it may have toned down these days. I don't know why, but you just don't hear stories like that anymore. I mean, it was always very hard. I also used to do cover music, and it was very hard to interview the many of the musicians because they were often really high or just like not serious, and or they wouldn't show up. I remember waiting for Frankie Goes to Hollywood for 3 hours, and I just thought, well, they're not coming. Finally, the penny dropped, and they were huge then. That's why I had to get them for the newscast. But yeah, those were ridiculous. So I certainly don't cover music anymore. That really left a bad taste.
Well, music isn't what it used to be anyway. So, but I'm sure every generation says that music is not music anymore. So, who was the person you interviewed that surprised you the most for whatever reason?
Good question. Holy smokes. Well, I got a funny story about Wilford Brimley. He came into the room to be interviewed. There was a stack of tapes going nearly up to the ceiling. And he said, "What's that?" And he said, "Those are the interviews you have to do." He got up and left, even though he was under contract to do them all. Isn't that insane? But who's surprised?
He's the big mustache guy, right?
Big mustache guy. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
he was a big star at one point. But
Mhm.
oh, I know, Mick Jagger. Oh my word, I was terrified. I was
Mhm.
waiting outside the room, and the publicist had to shake me and then
Mhm.
give me some water. And I went in, and he passed to go into the bathroom to change his shirt, and I clutched the wall behind me, and we sat down. And he was so sweet and nice and funny.
Mhm.
I felt immediately relaxed. Oh wow, that my was my one of my big surprises. So that was, gee, I haven't thought about that in a long while.
Mhm.
It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah. I
So
because I'm always thinking about being a better communicator. I do Toastmasters and I watch this
oh
online and things of that nature. And I was watching a clip of Robert Downey. And I'm being cognizant of our time because we're down to 4 minutes. So we'll have to decide if we want to do a part two. And but he was in this interview with a British host, and the host wanted to talk about all his issues with drugs.
oh come on.
And instead of the movie he was there for.
Oh come on.
And
Yeah.
I don't know if he was coached or he had been through this enough times that he sort of gave these shots across the bow. Like this is not why I'm here. Talk about why I'm here. Talk about the movie. And he gave this host 3 shots to course correct. And the guy was just like, you have animosity towards your father or things like that.
Oh come
And
on.
and then Robert just like, okay, we're done. Took off the mic and you know, and
As
I
he
thought,
should have.
yeah, that was so ballsy. And I don't know if he did it from his own brain or if there was a publicist off screen, but
Yeah.
it was
Yeah,
very
well,
interesting.
he would have agreed not to ask personal questions beforehand.
Mhm.
You're always asked to keep it focused on the movie. Now, one time when I interviewed Demi Moore, her publicist, the very scary late Pat Kingsley, sat
Mhm.
in a chair, literally breathing down my neck so I wouldn't ask any questions she didn't like.
Wow.
I think Demi Moore would do a lot to get an interview these days.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing how some people's careers can be like, and then maybe
Yes.
they'll just like
Yes.
taper, but she just like, I don't know, off the cliff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I sometimes think about that and I wonder, well, maybe they made so much money they can't be bothered. Maybe they can't get roles. It's always a strange situation. And I do
Mhm.
think about it from time to time because, whatever became of. Anyway, it's yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So they can certainly be watching these
Yeah.
publicists. I wrote a short story about Pat Kingsley later, by the way.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
Pat Kingsley's daughter was the
mhm.
girl in the pit in The Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, bit of trivia.
Did she do anything after that?
Yeah, yeah, she went on to do some good things. I was
Okay.
so shocked when I saw her. Anyway,
So it's
yes. So
decision time. So can we take a quick break and come back and talk a little more, or how's your schedule?
as a matter of fact, I can't. I'd love to do it another time, but
Okay.
I've got to be out of here by 12:15.
Okay. So
But I'd
thank
love to
you.
do it again. Please invite me. Please, please,
Sure.
please.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Great.
This has been fabulous. So thank
It
you so much
has.
for
Thank
coming
you.
on.
Thank
And
you.
to everybody who's tuned in, thank you for tuning into the Dead Man Walking podcast. And please like, subscribe, and share, and whatever else all the cool kids tell you what to do with these podcasts. And have yourselves a great week. Thanks. Bye bye.